Hello, dear students. I welcome you to yet another lecture on in education technology and curriculum development. This should be, I think, our fourth lecture, and specifically we are going to look at the topic of audio technology. And when we meet next, we hope to have a discussion and have some practical demonstrations of some audio technologies that we can use in the classroom. This is one of them because we are definitely using an audio perspective, using the simple tool of PowerPoint. But we shall look at some more, an array of technologies that you may have at your fingertips. As this slide shows, we are on our fourth lecture, and we have now started looking at some of the practical elements, or introducing ourselves to some of the practical elements. So today we are looking at audio technologies. Now, these technologies are all around us. We have seen them, we have used them in social elements. We may or may not have used them in the classroom already, but today we want to start to formalize them. We want to formalize them, understand them, and use them effectively. What are they? What are the implications of these audio technologies? Well, we are social beings. As human beings, we are social beings, which means we understand better when we interact with another human being. It's one thing to read text, to read a book. If it's for entertainment purposes, that is okay. But when it comes to teaching and learning, it's one of the most supportive ways is to hear another person speak. Yeah, it's one of the best ways to learn. Personally, one of the best ways I learn is when I listen to somebody talking on a particular topic. For example, one of the things that I particularly love is religion. Anything to do with religion. I love to listen to theology experts, and so I listen a lot to people talking rather than, yes, I can read and I do enjoy that part, but I really understand better when a person speaks and brings forward logic through narration. So that friendly human voice is a great advantage in teaching and learning. So as educators, as teachers, as lecturers, this is a method we can use supported by ICT to enhance our teaching and learning processes. Bear in mind that we don't use these technologies in isolation. We mix and match them here and there. But they are great, they are a really good opportunity to enhance teaching and learning. Now, specifically, when we look at this writer, they say that in higher education, it really does improve. Studies have shown that it does improve performance in students. So it is something that we should learn to use. When audio is then combined with the visual, it then becomes really phenomenal. It becomes a really important tool. When can we apply them? We have not yet looked at some of the examples, but when can we apply them? For us in teaching, when you want to distribute teaching materials to several people, I think of myself, my learning, my education background, and which is good. I am not going to belittle it. It's an important way of learning. When the teacher dictated notes and we all sat down and wrote, it is also good. I think for me it improved my speed, it improved my spelling, and also to take ownership of my studies. But however, of course, not everyone in the class maybe writes at the same pace or may have the same skills all at once. So if there are certain topics or there are certain things you wish to distribute to all your students at once, this is one way of doing it, where you record something and distribute to your students. Now, for example, right now I'm recording myself teaching this lecture. I'm going to put it up on Moodle. You'll access it. You're accessing it in Moodle, and each one of you can listen to it at your own spare time. As students at master's level, all of you have other really, this is not no less, but you have other really important matters in your lives. For example, some may be mothers, some may be at your workplace. There are some demands that need to be handled right now. So therefore, somebody recording a material and handing it to you for you to listen to at your own at your own convenience, it becomes a good way to distribute materials. So you can also do this for your students. You may be teaching at secondary school level, primary, whichever level it is that you're teaching. At a certain point, there are certain things a student can benefit from learning while they are outside of the classroom. So if you wish to distribute that teaching material so the student can go and learn independently, this is using audio technologies is a convenient and appropriate technology to apply. If you wish to summarize some of your previous teachings, just bring them together into one audio recording so that your students can go back and pick through some of their notes, and you drive home certain points that are key for them to pick up. This is also a good method to support that teaching objectives. If you have task-driven activities in the classroom, you can also use the recording, because again, in the recording, you're able to emphasize and re-emphasize something so that the students know what tasks they need to tackle. When you are providing feedback, especially after assessment, media technology or audio recordings can really support that. For you to emphasize maybe to a group of students or one particular student, points that need to be driven home. I've seen actually this form of communication being very supportive in social media. I have young nieces and nephews who wish to communicate with me on different things throughout their lives. Take an example. If you have a niece who has maybe wants to give accountability for monies that she's asking for school, sometimes they find it better to record their voices and send to me on WhatsApp so that I get it clearly what their needs are. This is opposed to, let's say, somebody making a list asking me for certain needs, and I don't know why you're asking for this, why you're asking for that. But they realize that, oh, if they send a recording to me, then I will understand better why they need something on their list. If you wish to explain new concepts or new ideas, audio technologies are also quite good. I remember when we started the lectures, I was telling you that there are certain technologies that we can use at our fingertips, and this is one of them. I'm giving you an example of a recording I am making using the tools that all of us have at our fingertips. Right now, I'm using PowerPoint. I'm recording myself. I'm not using anything spectacular. A simple laptop with Windows 10, PowerPoint, and I'm making that recording. This is at our fingertips. We can all use it. If you wish to update a course on certain changes, maybe you've already written something, but you need to update something for your students, an audio file can be helpful. Now, for the students themselves, where would this be applicable? Well, one, if students have a task that needs repetition. Take an example in an English language class, or I was telling one of my nieces that she should try out French, I think a language that is foreign where you need to learn pronunciation and things like that. If you need something to be repetitive for you to master a certain skill, audio technologies are really good. And the students can also decide, oh, let me record myself saying this, let me hear myself pronounce these words, and then maybe compare myself to somebody else. It can also facilitate discussions in collaborative learning or distance learners. They can use this technology to communicate something to their group members and even to the lecturer or the student. This technology also helps students in developing their listening and speaking skills. What we had earlier said here, this supports the first point where you have repetitive, something that needs repetition or practice. Then you can also use this to show that as evidence of activities you've done in the classroom. This can be one of them for the students, even for the the teachers. I mean, there are some teachers where they say we want proof that you've actually been teaching. So recording yourself as you teach is one way of supporting maybe the administrative side of things. Now let's just look at just some of these audio technologies. Starting with the traditional, the cassette tapes. Now, I'm sure in my time these were there. I'm sure most of you must have seen some of these cassette tapes. I don't think they are very common, but as a child, we grew up with cassette tapes. And I remember when you'd press a button to rewind a song. I remember my siblings and I, when we, you want to cram a song, you rewind and rewind and run until the tape actually goes off and gets spoiled. But it's one of these technologies. I don't think it is. It's really available now, maybe, but I haven't seen one in a long time. Here is an image, in case an image of cassette tapes and an old-fashioned cassette player. Here we have this is the old-fashioned cassette tape player, and these are the cassettes themselves. Now we also do have broadcast or radio. This is quite common now. We have seen it, and it has actually been one of the technologies that Ministry of Education was proposing for distance learning. I don't know if this has been effected, but it's one of the things that was being proposed. But however, there are quite a number of talks on radio which are quite educative, and they can also be useful. If your school does have a radio station, for example, I know some universities do have radio stations and they make use of them, mostly for maybe communicating certain things at the university level, for maybe administrative purposes or for social purposes, but not necessarily for teaching and learning, but it can also be used. A telephone is another. We can teach via the phone. Of course, this is an expensive venture. Yeah, we all know using the telephone can be quite expensive. But for me, sometimes I've used it when I'm supervising students. Now, especially because of the pandemic and my duties here at home in Fort Portal, I tend to rely on things like Zoom, email, and telephones when I'm supervising research students. So that can also be supportive. Then we have the digital audio technologies or digital audio media. This is now more coming to the current age, what we are now using. So we've seen CDs or CD-ROMs. We've seen those. They are also kind of going out of fashion, but they are still there, where you can record yourself and then save it on a CD-ROM and copy it to several CD-ROMs and distribute to several students. They are also again going out of fashion because ICT is coming up with new technologies which may be more portable and more easily distributed, maybe through WhatsApp and other internet platforms more than the CD-ROM. But however, it does create a much more clearer audio file than, for example, the cassette tape, and maybe a little bit more durable. It doesn't mean it will always be there, but it will still work for you. Now we come to the more recent that we have. It is possible to create an audio file via the internet. And you create files like WAV files or MP3 files. You can also do this on your phone. It's possible for you to do this on your phone. Another technology which has been availed especially for the education sector, most of the time free of charge, are podcasts. So it's basically a teacher. There are certain platforms which are created, let's say, for teachers, where a teacher can go record himself or herself, upload these podcasts, and students. Then the students are assigned to this platform and can listen to these podcasts. So they are basically found over the internet. I also want to add that Moodle itself can help you create such audio files. It's quite possible, but there are also free sites like these which are mentioned that can allow teachers to create podcasts and then share them with their students. Now, there are, however, challenges, and this is a topic that we shall discuss in detail somewhere along the way, with regard to using audio files, or for that matter, anything related to ICT. And the biggest problem is copyright issues, yeah, ownership of materials. Once I create something and then I post it online, who does it belong to? For example, now, if for this particular file, I'm going to hand it over to the ICT department of UMU. I'm going to ask them to upload it on the YouTube channel for UMU, then link it to Moodle, where you as students, you have the right to download it and view it at your own free time. Now, what happens if a non-UMU student accesses this content? What happens then? What do we do? Because it definitely, for you to access it means you're a registered student of Uganda Matters University. You have paid your fees, and therefore you have a right to access this content because it's meant for your teaching, for your learning process. It's meant for myself. I produce it to teach, and yourself, you access it for the learning process. So now what happens when somebody accesses it? Now, likewise, you will also, if you choose to use this technology for your professional purposes, you may have to consider those copyright issues. And this is where your school or whichever institution you're in must have a clear policy on what happens to the content that is developed. What happens to it? Anything basically that is meant that you post online. Who is the owner of that content, and what should happen to it? We shall bring out some of the Uganda's acts that point this out and discuss them at length in some of our lectures. Second thing are technical problems. Yeah, technical problems you may encounter. I may develop a file, but you can't access it because you don't have the right maybe tool or application to access it in your area, in your context where you are. Maybe you don't have the right application on your phone or on your computer. So this goes back to our lecture on classroom technology design. What technology should you use that should harmonize the platform? Remember again when we defined communication, what communication is. You all must have a common platform for which you're communicating on. So the technology matters. This is where the technical problems may come in. Here we have just a few examples of tools that we can use, and we can have demonstrations when we have the live lecture next time. Depending on the technology you're using, is it Mac OS, is it Windows, is it Linux? We have several technologies that exist there already pre-existing. Windows has the voice recorder. Yeah, that's one of them. Right now, I'm using PowerPoint to do all this recording. So we have quite a number of technologies. We have some applications on the internet that can also help us do the job. You also have several recording applications on your Android phones. They can also do that, be it video or audio, they can do it. Also, to make note, just to give note, Moodle itself has all its own embedded technologies that can help do the recording for you as well. So, do we know any other audio technologies? Now, in our next lecture, that is next week, we shall look at some of these things practically and discuss them in detail. I also just want to let you know that your first assignment is there on Moodle. It is with regard to classroom technology design. Please access it, and you can do this in groups. You can do it in a group. There's only 3 of you, so this can be done in a group. So I thank you for listening. I hope you have a good day.